You know, life really is about stages. You have your baby phase, where people love you and think you're cute no matter what you do. You have your teen phase, where people understand and they tolerate you, but they understand the growing pains you have. And then there's the adult phase, where you really have to go and prove yourself. And today, we're talking about the adult phase. All right, this is the Divo Tall Boy, coming in at 8 inches overall. I believe this is the largest knife Divo has made in the history of their existence, which we'll get to in a second, but let's talk about the hard facts, the hard numbers, and the little details of this knife. So, as I said, 8 inches overall. You have S90V steel, you have a titanium handle, you have a unique spin on a liner lock right in here. I think they call it a subframe, but it's just, to me, a liner lock that they kind of bouged up a little bit with this little tab here that you can use to open and close. So you have your thumb hole, you have your thumb stud, and then you have an ambidextrous pocket clip setup, which I do greatly appreciate. As far as blade finish goes, you're looking at a stone wash finish on the blade, and also you have this nice titanium scales here, and then you have some blue hardware here, and then on the back here. As far as the blade is concerned, to me this is like a modified Wharncliffe format, or something like a reverse Tonto. Let me know what you think this exact blade shape is in the comments down below, because I'm slightly confused personally. So with the hard facts out of the way, let's talk about this knife and how it feels to use. So right out of the box, the thumb stud itself felt a little bit tight, like they almost over detented it a little bit, over tightened this little pivot screw here. But after a little bit of use for a couple days, I can use this knife absolutely no problem, and it has that nice patented Divo pop to it, which there's no better time to bring in another example. Let's use the nip as an example here. So this knife has a sharp, crisp pop to it, and despite its miniature, adorable, cute little size, it is sharp and it has a really snappy opening and closing mechanism that is then replicated and scaled up with something like the Tall Boy. Compare that to something like a Civivi, which might have a smoother or gentler opening mechanism. These knives really like to go all out. So you've got the knife from closed to open, fantastic. How is it to hold? Well, I'm happy to report this knife is really comfy to use in whatever hand size you might have. Whether you have big hands, you have this other extra groove right in here. You have little hands, you have plenty of real estate to grab onto. So as far as something like hotspots goes, maybe the end of this pocket clip here, when it contacts your palm as you're holding it, you might feel a little bit of something there, though you could move your hand posture around or hold it differently depending on how you feel about it. These right angles aren't sharp in the slightest. They're actually almost nicely beveled out, so they don't cut into my hands at all. And even though it has a more right angle design compared to something like, let's say, the Pony Stout, I think this is a really nice knife that keeps in with the design philosophy and is a nice companion knife to the lines that are worked in this nip here. I'll also appreciate that the pocket clip is a bit more than just the wire that's used in the nip, a bit more pricey, but you feel a bit more bougie. But I've been waffling on about the sound of these knives, for a second, so let's do something a little bit more official. Maintaining the form that they've already had, the Divo knives always have a crisp, sharp sound to them. They really can go from the open and closed position really nicely, and especially when you get to break them in, they're really comfy to use for a long period of time. They don't feel like they take much effort, though they're really solid. When you go to open it, it's right there for you. And initially I wasn't sure how I'd feel about how this stud was set up, with it being so close and almost on top of the thumb hole. Usually there's a bit more space, but when it comes to holding it here, opening it, it's been quite easy, and this thing hasn't gone away in the slightest. There's plenty of real estate around the stud for me to take my thumb and to push up on it or to push out on it, depending on how you like to hold and open knives. But those are my thoughts on the Divo Tall Boy. Let me know what you think of this knife or this knife in the comments down below. Feel free to hop into the Discord. And yeah, I will see you in the next one.